right, we will call the meeting to order. If everybody can rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic that stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Looks like we got a full house. Thank you to anyone who is joining us on Zoom as well. We will start with special recognition, district volunteer recognition. Dr. Pierce will lead us through that.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, right before the board meeting, we had a little reception and we invited our district volunteers to come and be recognized. So all of our schools have activities at the end of the year, receptions, different ways of recognizing the school-based volunteers. And so we started doing a district volunteer celebration. I think this is our second annual. So we really appreciate everyone who's able to be here tonight and all the people who weren't able to be here tonight because we really rely on volunteers to help us move the district forward and best serve our students. And I always like this Helen Keller quote that says, "Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much." And we have amazing volunteers at all of our buildings and also people who volunteer on district level committees and parent advisory groups and different teams to help us at the district level. So there are citizens committees that exist. There are different district level committees and parent advisory councils. And so we've got them listed here. And as I name the group, if you are a volunteer that serves on that committee or group or engagement board or advisory committee, could you please stand and remain standing? So it's not a district committee, but there's a citizens levy and bond committee that works very hard to support our schools. We have a community engagement boards that help with student attendance and re-engagement. New this year, there's a communications advisory that works with our communications team to help improve our district communications. We have career and technical education advisories and industry partners who serve on those advisories and help shape our CTE programs. We have a district equality of opportunity team that helps to make sure, and I'm seeing people, but nobody's standing, so
maybe at the end.
Maybe at the end. The District Equality of Opportunity team helps to ensure that we're providing excellent opportunities for all of our students. Dual Language Advisory Committee, ECAP, that's preschool ECAP advisory. Facilities Executive Committee, who helps shape bond plans and capital project plans. Focus is our committee that brings together community partners and police and helps to fund and run the tailgate that funds drug-free programs for students at graduation. The Instructional Materials Committee that helps to vet learning materials and recommend them to the board for approval. Migrant and Bilingual Parent Advisory Committee, a Nutrition Services Advisory Committee, a Special Education Parent Advisory Committee, and a Tribal Education and Collaboration Committee. And I hope that I included all of the committees and advisory groups, but if my cabinet friends, if I have left anyone off, now would be the time to mention that. And if you are here because you've served or currently serve on any of these groups or committees, could you please stand so we can recognize you? We sure appreciate all your volunteer time, and it's great. And Diego's reminding me we have students on these committees too. So thank you for your service to the district, and we really do appreciate you. Hopefully, I think Robin hooked you up with some swag, and we just appreciate you for all that you do. So thanks for being here. Our next special recognition tonight is a bittersweet one because we have to say goodbye to Annie Maltos, who has been our outstanding 2024-25 Student School Board representative. Annie has been just a pleasure to work with, and the board, I'm sure, is going to want to say some things too, but it's just been truly fun to work with you this year. I appreciate your engagement, your enthusiasm, your professionalism, your inquisitiveness, just everything that you've brought to this role. I think you've done a great job helping Diego get ready to step in. And so you're going to leave a lasting legacy here in KSD that you should be really proud of. And it's been really nice to work with you. We have a very special plaque for you. And it says, in appreciation of your dedication and service on behalf of the students and staff of the Kennewick School District, Annie Maltos, honored member, Kennewick School Board 24-25. I know board members are going to want to say something, and then there's a couple special people here that Annie's going to introduce to us. We'll let the board speak first.
Mike,
you start? Perfect. Yep. I love it. I love being first. So Annie, really, it has been so much fun to work with this year. I really enjoy getting to know you. You've done a spectacular job. You have pleasant, charming. You have asked great questions, and you're not afraid to disagree with us, which is key. And that's something you need to learn as a young adult, that sometimes standing up what you believe in is key. And you've done that, and you've done that with grace and just really, really impressive. So thank you so much.
Dr. Miller?
I want to echo everything Mike said. An absolute pleasure. A lot of times in these meetings and in other meetings, we've talked about how important it is that we have youth that will go out into the community when they graduate, and they'll be ready to be a part of the community, be contributing members of the community. And I think you are a perfect example of what we're trying to achieve. You're someone who is going to be a valuable member of our community, not just hopefully maybe someday, but pretty immediately, which I think is great. I'm excited to see the things that you do. I hope that you come back and keep in touch and let us know how things are going. Obviously, if there's things we can do to help you, we'd love it. You are an excellent representative of what we stand for. And what we hope our students become and achieve. So thank you for all the things you've done. Thank you for being who you are and for all the work you've put into developing yourself and the character that you have. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor.
Yeah, I feel stacked as Mike and Dr. Miller. I wrote down a few of the words that Tracy used when she was speaking because I feel like they reflect my own, that you have really been very good at engagement, and not only engaging with us as a board, but also engaging with the student board and then coming and representing them very well. One of my favorite things was being able to watch you lead an advisory council, and you really led with compassion and with sincerity. And it's clear that you established a culture with that board where everyone felt like they could express their true and honest views, and they knew that you would listen to them and that you would bring those opinions, those views to us. And you've done that very, very well. Like Mike, I also appreciate that you haven't always agreed with the majority of the board, and that you've been able to share your opinion, and you've done that with grace. And it's been very refreshing to be able to interact with you. And I love that your plaque says an honored member, because I don't view you as a student representative, but rather as a member of the board. So very best of luck to you. I have no doubts in your success. You're already there. You're already a contributing member of society, and we are just excited to see where you go from here. So please keep us updated on what you're doing and where you're at.
All right, Annie, I was trying to think of what words like represent Annie D. And the words that I came up with were brave and beautiful. And, I mean, beautiful, and, geez, inside and out, inside and out. I love that you have, feel like you have like an eager attitude and an optimistic demeanor. And I love that about you. I love your strong perspective. That's what I mean, you know, you do have that bravery where you can talk to us. One of my favorite things about you is that you look me in the eyes and you talk to me. And you talk to me like an adult. And I really appreciate that. That's something that I want my own kids to have, and I work with them, and that's something that I think your mom's done a great job with that. And just so everybody knows that, what was that competition called? What the senior assassin? My daughter got her out.
Darn it.
Just a little FYI, everybody.
Shoot.
With the principal. With the principal.
They teamed up.
I'm done, yeah. Thank you, Annie. You're wonderful.
This is the hard part when you go last, because it's hard to come up with additional stuff that everybody hasn't shared. But Annie, knowing you for a few years outside of this, you are a very talented young lady. You're going to do fantastic. If I remember correctly, teaching, right?
Yes.
So we hope you come back and teach for us here and shape the next generation of future leaders for us. So we truly appreciate your ability to just share your viewpoint in the student voice on this board. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you guys. I will be back. I will keep in touch. But I also want to thank my mom and my dad. They're sitting over there.
Yes, for sure.
They're-
Yeah, we got
The best support I could ever have asked for throughout all of my high school and moving over here in the middle of high school, and they're just the best. So thank you guys. That's all I got.
We do, does Robin want to do a picture? Are we going to do that later or?
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Sure.
And Annie, share real quick what your post-high school plans are.
Oh, I plan on attending GCU in the fall for 4 years for my bachelor's in education, and then hopefully the University of Hawaii for 2 years for my master's. So, yes.
Yeah, if you want to.
I know.
We'll do one of the animals.
I'm trying to hold my.
Thank you, Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. What a great way to start our meeting. We will move on. Next up is communication from parents, staff, and district residents. The Ken Oak School District Board of Directors appreciates hearing from the community. At regular board business meetings, the Board of Directors provides an opportunity for communications from parents, staff, and district residents. This time is reserved during the working meeting for the board to listen to comments, input, and information. The board does not respond to these comments as the goal is to listen and learn. Please know the board's silence is neutral. It's neither a signal of agreement nor disagreement with the speaker's remarks. As appropriate, the board will ask the superintendent and her staff to look into any issues raised. Finally, please remember that your words have impact and you, not the school district, are responsible for those words. We caution all speakers that it's possible your statements could violate the rights of others under various laws, including laws protecting privacy and laws prohibiting defamation. Guidelines for addressing the board. When the board president calls your name, please come to the podium at the front. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. A stoplight on the screen will let you know when to begin. 1 minute remaining and your time has ended. Thank you for being here this evening. We will start off with Rachel Ostler.
I need to stand here, or is it gonna hear me?
We just got people
Better,
listening, so we
better.
want.
Better? You guys will tell me if I'm not loud
That's
enough.
what it was about people online.
Perfect.
You may want-
Online, I want you to hear too. Good
Pull the
evening.
mic up towards, that way they can.
Better? Okay.
Better. Thank you.
Good evening, school board. I wanted to take a moment to introduce the Amistad Elementary staff and apologize for our tardiness. Had we known we would have been such a topic of discussion at the last school board meeting, I assure you we would have been here. 2 minutes doesn't give me enough time to celebrate and honor this staff as they deserve, but I'll do my best. In this pot of educators, I consider myself a guppy, inexperienced as you might say. There are teachers on this staff who have been my mentor, challenged me, gave me incredible insight into the community we serve, and I hope along the way, somewhere in my 8 years, I've given them that too. This staff is diverse, having roots all around the 7 Cs near and far, some even being Amistad students themselves. With experiences as youth mirroring that of our beloved students, giving us all the more motivation to help them see their limitless potential. You see, we orcas have a chip on our shoulder. We see the looks, we hear the tone, and read the body language loud and clear when we say, I teach at Amistad. Many in this community view it and us in the amazing community we serve as less than. We love proving everyone wrong. Like when our staff and students were recognized as part of the 16% of schools in Washington for closing gaps comprehensively just last year. Let me make one thing incredibly clear. You asked at the last meeting if you had the right educators in the building for our Amistad students, our students. I promise you that you do. Thank you.
Next up, is it Tara Rink? Yes. Perfect.
Good evening. I'm Tara Rink, and I'm an Amistad educator with nearly 30 years of experience. I brought a mirror with me tonight. It's similar to the one that I look at every night when I ask myself if I have done enough and been enough for my students. It's similar to the one I look at every morning before I go to work and remind myself to truly see my students, to look further than what's on the surface, and that I have the enormous responsibility and the privilege to educate their minds and hearts. It's the mirror I have to face when I'm successful and the one that I stare at when I'm not. You see, strong teachers and people reflect on their practice and their impact, and they adjust as needed. Our district mission is for students to feel safe, known, and valued, and prepared for the future. Do you know the students at Amistad more than you read in a report? Do you know which students are hungry? Those that have witnessed gun violence, those that have been in 10 different schools by the age of 11, those that have moved to our school the week of testing and show up on our scores even though we were not responsible for any of their instruction? We do. We also know that those things affect their ability to learn. Our district mission is for staff to feel safe, respected, and valued as professionals. Have you visited Amistad and seen the work that we're doing? Have you looked at our data walls? Have you talked to us to know if we actually look like our students? Do you know that we only get $91.70 for school supplies? And that I ask every year for my birthday for school supplies instead of gifts since I've been at Amistad? Do you know there's a difference between a class size of 18 and 29? Do you know that we can't make our students come to school, but that we call, we visit, we send cards, and we do whatever we can because we know that we're judged by the test scores in the report that you saw? I welcome you to come into Team 147 anytime. I have 29 fifth graders this year, so you might have to stand because space is pretty limited. They are an amazing bunch who have faced tremendous challenges in their young lives. They have learned and grown so much. They laugh loudly, they love cautiously. I know their faces, their families, their stories, and their hearts. Tonight, when I go home and look in the mirror, I'll see a teacher proud of standing up for our students, our school, and our community. I'll see a teacher who works with a staff that is composed of diverse, passionate, and data-driven individuals who are committed to the district mission for our students. I'll see a teacher who shows up for her students, no matter how or if they show up. What will you see when you go home and look in the mirror tonight?
Thank you. Areli, Laura? Okay.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Areli, and I'm a dual language teacher at Amistad Elementary. I chose to teach at Amistad because it's truly a special place. Our school is rich in diversity. Our students come from many backgrounds, and they have the powerful experience of seeing themselves reflected in their teachers, and that matters. At Amistad, we have a team of diverse, experienced, and qualified educators who not only look like our students, but are deeply committed to their growth and success. I have the privilege of teaching students who remind me of my younger self. They're not learning a new language, they're learning how to belong. Our teachers support academic growth while affirming students' identities and building their confidence. This work is more than just instruction. It is a bridge to opportunity, inclusion, and equity. And teaching at Amistad is a choice many of us take pride in. We've become the teachers we once needed, teachers who see, support, and uplift our students. With limited resources, we work tirelessly every day to close academic gaps while making sure our students feel safe, valued, and loved. And that's what makes Amistad more than just a school. It's a true community. I look forward to when the support for our multilingual learners and newcomers become a reality. Our impact will only grow, and with that support, we can take our students even further. Thank you for your time and listening to those of us doing the work on the ground every day.
Next up, Christina Stout.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Christina Stout, and I'm a second grade teacher at Amistad Elementary. Thank you for giving us, Amistad staff, the opportunity to speak this week. At your last school board meeting, you highlighted the completion of 44 official school visits across the district. That's a huge accomplishment, one we hope to see continue year after year. Tonight, I want to ask a few questions about the way school board members conduct official visits in our district. What constitutes an official visit to a school? Did you review Amistad data? Did you walk our hallways, meet with our staff, solicit feedback, or ask questions to those of us that work there? What is the goal of these visits? Are they meant to build relationships, to listen, to learn about the strengths within our building and build upon them, to help identify where the district and you as a board can help support us in the work we do to benefit students? As educators and school leaders, we strive every day to create safe, respectful, and student-centered environments where learning is prioritized. Teachers at Amistad work tirelessly to meet the varied and individualized needs of our students, which extend far beyond academics. Can we as a district develop a shared understanding of the purpose and expectations for school visits? One that prioritizes partnership, collaboration, and respect for the professionals in the building. We welcome your presence. We're doing great things right next door. We're doing it for students, for families, and our staff would love to share that with you. Most importantly, we are impacting students every day in so many ways. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Rhonda McClellan.
Good evening. I'm Rhonda McClellan. I'm a learning facilitator at Amistad. And at the last meeting, there was a lot of discussion about Amistad. Unfortunately, we, the staff at Amistad, were not invited to this meeting, and we didn't know about this meeting. If we had known, we would have definitely been here. One topic of conversation was the inexperience of our teachers. So I collected some data this week, and I have some that I'd like to share with you. Tara Rink, 29 years in education, 4 at Amistad. Sarah Delgado, 6 years in education, 6 at Amistad. Jorge Serrato, 16 years of education, 8 years at Amistad. Maya Ramos, 10 years, 7 years at Amistad. Ana Ochoa, 11 years in education, 11 years at Amistad. John Perez, 28 years in education, 28 years at Amistad. Shakira Ames, 14 years in education, 4 at Amistad. Stephanie Pearson, 11 years in education, 11 years at Amistad. Andrea Furness, 25 years in education, 25 years at Amistad. Mary Ellen Harris, 22 years in education, 22 at Amistad. Eva Badgley, 19 years in education, 6 at Amistad. Nadia Magallon, 12 years in education, 12 years at Amistad. Yvonne Luna, 14 years in education, 12 years at Amistad. Jessica Uribe, 6 years in education, 2 at Amistad. Denise Mora, 2 years in education, 2 at Amistad. Christina Stout, 15 years in education, 3 at Amistad. Miranda Cannon, 18 years in education, 10 at Amistad. Alejandro Ochoa, 10 years in education, 10 at Amistad. Aurelia Laura, 11 years in education, 7 at Amistad. Rachel Osler, 7 years in education, 7 at Amistad. Berta Herrera, 17 years in education, 5 at Amistad. Megan Paschke, 15 years in education, 3 at Amistad. Kaylin Hyman, 9 years in education, 4 at Amistad. Avelia Garcia Lazo, 10 years in education, 9 at Amistad. Rebecca Keene, 20 years in education, 8 at Amistad. David Olson, 13 years in education, 11 at Amistad. Lanny Lepka, 11 years in education, 6 at Amistad. Marina Torino, at 13 years in education, 6 at Amistad. Katie Marple, 7 years in education, 4 at Amistad. Rhonda McClellan, 28 years in education, 6 at Amistad. Ken Holton, 19 years in education, 6 at Amistad. Moises Marquez, 30 years in education, 24 at Amistad. Susana Marquez, 28 years in education, 24 at Amistad. Michelle Inman, 21 years in education, 3 years at Amistad. Amanda Cohn, 20 years in education, 6 years at Amistad. Lexi Mundy, 7 years in education, 4 years at Amistad. Laura Hamilton, 22 years in education, 5 at Amistad. Chris Coxon, 13 years in education, 5 at Amistad. Perry Kelly, 27 years in education, 2 at Amistad. Melissa Ibarra, 24 years in education, 1 at Amistad. And Garth Lynn, 28 years in education, 2 at Amistad. I don't think we're an inexperienced staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Jason Hart.
Hi, my name is Jason Hart. I'm the swim coach of Southridge. I was here at the last meeting, and I just wanted to follow up with something. I've emailed y'all several times. I've been here to talk. I think you've heard enough from me. So what we did is we got these testimonials from people that participated in Boys High School Swim and Dive, and what they learned and how they grew and all that type of stuff. And I'd sure like to share these with you if that's okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have one for each of you. I asked them to limit it to 4 or 5 sentences. Most people failed. There's like a page and a half. I'm just trying to think of ways to connect people with celebrating the wonderful sport that I'm lucky enough to be a part of. I've coached boys in other school districts and stuff, and I just want to bring that to the boys here at the KSD. Thank you for your time. Again, you've heard from me plenty. I just want you to hear from some other people. And again, I asked for 4 or 5 sentences, not a page and a half, but I didn't want to edit what they have, so thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Rama Devagupta.
Good evening, Dr. Pierce and board members. I'm Rama Devagupta from Southridge High School. I teach biology. A few weeks ago, I was here requesting our board members and Dr. Pierce to reach out to the legislature and to the governor's office because we were all very concerned that the national board stipend and BCT stipend was being axed. And I have come to express my thanks to Dr. Pierce and to the board members who reached out to the legislature and the governor's office. I understand that the governor signed the bill, some of the bills yesterday, and the NBCT stipend is intact. I want to thank Rachel Osner, our KA secretary, and Rob Woodford and the WEA advocacy group for getting all of us motivated to tell the community and the state the impact of national boards certification. And I am going to take the liberty of reading a section from our KEA site from Rachel Hewitt from Southgate Elementary. She says, at my school, no one is national board certified, and I wanted to change that. I wanted to show my colleagues that it is possible and demonstrate how this certification benefits our students. National Board pushes teachers to reflect deeply, refine our practice, and ensure that we are meeting the highest standards for our students. Removing the stipend would discourage educators from pursuing this rigorous but incredibly valuable process, ultimately impacting the quality of education our students receive. So once again, thank you for advocating for your National Board certified teachers and actually all students and all teachers. Washington has okay, I'm forgetting my statistics, but I can tell you that our Kennewick School District has 11.1% of National Board certified teachers in our staff. And thank you once again for your advocacy. Have a lovely evening.
Next up is Laura Hamilton.
Good evening, board members. My name is Laura Hamilton. I am a primary life skills teacher at Amistad Elementary. I don't look like my students. I'm far older than most of my colleagues, but I grew up in this neighborhood, just across the street, behind the grocery outlet, down on 6th Avenue. I graduated from Fruitland Elementary, so that will age me. I graduated from Park Middle School, and I graduated from Kennewick High School. The reason I'm a teacher today is because of the teachers that helped me when I was young going to these schools. My experience is different than those of the kiddos who go to Amistad today, but these teachers love them the way my teachers loved me. There's so much experience, there's so much diversity. Most importantly, there is so much love. They are fierce advocates for their students, as I am a fierce advocate for my students with special needs. They love their students like no one else. And I want you to remember that the next time you're questioning who we are. Do we look like our students? Do we have enough experience? We've got all of that. But most of all, we have love for those kids, and we will be there for them every day.
Next up is Berta Herrera Trejo.
Estimada doctora Pierce, estimados miembros de la Junta, muchas gracias por estar aquí para escucharlos a todos. Amistad es una escuela donde habla varias lenguas, pero la lengua principal es unidad. Todos somos unidos, todos tenemos hambre y ganas de enseñar a nuestros estudiantes en inglés, en español, como puedan, porque los niños vienen solamente a aprender y nosotros estamos allí para enseñarles. Les estoy hablando de una persona que llegó a Estados Unidos a los 16 años de México. A los 33 años fui a la universidad con 4 niños. No hablaba mucho inglés, pero la hambre de aprender me llegué a tener 2 maestrías, 2 bachilleratos, y ahora soy maestra en la escuela de Amistad. Mis colegas hablan inglés, hablan español, se miran como mis estudiantes, se miran como mí, otros no. Pero todos nos unimos para enseñar a los estudiantes porque tenemos hambre de que aprendan ellos y sean alguien lo que quieren ser ellos. Como pueden ver, todos mis amigos y compañeros están aquí, la mayoría. Queremos tener una voz, queremos que nos escuchen, queremos que nos comprendan, que estamos aquí solamente para enseñar a nuestros estudiantes a que sean lo que ellos quieren. Gracias.
All right, next up, Layla, is it Layla Ray? Layla Ray. No. Navarrete?
Hi, my name is Layla Ray Gloria Navarrete. I'm a senior at Kamaikan High School and a second year at TriTech Skill Center under the Early Childhood Education Program. I spoke at the last school board meeting in regards to the drama classes, and I'm here again to follow it up. I want to address the benefits of having a drama class available for high school students at Kamaikan High School, which I have previously taken. I was looking on the Kennewick School District's meeting, and I was like, you know what are the learning outcomes? I learned the importance of learning outcomes from one of my English 101 classes at Columbia Basin College, and I wanted to see what the learning outcomes that I got from taking drama 1, 2, all the way through 3, 4. Some of those include read comprehensive, write effective, and communicate successfully in a variety of ways and settings with a variety of audiences. That comes with the drama class. I have read a multitude of plays, and I've also had to articulate what that means. We also find this in English curriculum by reading Romeo and Juliet, Julius Caesar, The Crucible, Bits of Fences. These are all things that come in there. I also learned how to apply core concepts through social, physical, and life sciences with history, including different cultures and participation in representative governments, geography, arts, and health and fitness. All of this also comes with the drama class in any curriculum, not just Kamaikan High School's curriculum, but also at other places that I have taught at, including the Academy of Children's Theater, and also being taught through the Pen and Sword LLC. I've also learned how to think analytically, logically, creatively, and also integrate technology with literacy and fluency, as well as different experiences and knowledge to form and reason judgments and problem solving. All of this I've also learned through taking a drama class, to where I'm now here and talking in front of the school board. I've also learned the importance of work and finance and how performance, effort, and decisions directly affect future career and educational opportunities. Because of my experience taking a drama class at Kamaikan High School, I have gained internships, apprenticeships with local educational communities here, to where the point I am now going into education to continue to advocate for students such as myself. Thank you.
All right, next up is Jay Poling.
I'm Jeannie Poling, and what I'm come to talk about is on the 23rd of April, y'all passed a K through 12 online learning materials, and I'm wondering if anyone has actually sat through any of those materials to make sure that they're not contradicting the letter that y'all sent out against DEI and ESG type stuff. The thing that raised my red flag is when I'm seeing something called renewable energy. These terms are used to hide what they really are teaching. So I'd offer that y'all might want to take a look at those curriculums if you haven't done so. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone online? No. Okay. Normally we'd move on, but I'm going to offer the opportunity if there's anyone else out there that would like to speak. I'll take one or two more speakers if you would like to. If not, we'll. Just want to make sure everyone has a chance to share. You can just tell us your name.
Hi, Lori Evans. I teach at Southridge High School. I was not planning on speaking tonight. There's so many people here that have said so many wonderful things. I was on swim team when I was at Southridge my freshman year, and I have never considered myself an athlete, ever. I'd never considered myself an athlete, but found my place in swim and dive. I know that there are so many boys here in the Kennewick School District that could thrive on a team like that have not found themselves in football or in soccer or in basketball or wrestling or all of these other opportunities where they could thrive in the water. I strongly, strongly ask that you take a look again and talk to our athletic directors and try to get this to be a thing. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That wraps up communication from parents, staff, and district residents. So we will proceed to consent items. I will take a motion to approve the consent items.
I will move to accept the consent items as presented.
Thank you, Mike. Patty, with the roll call vote, please.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Gledhill?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
And Mr. Galbraith?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next up, communication follow-up. I will share something, but I'll.
I have one communication follow-up from the last meeting.
Wait, don't, if you came for Amistad, don't leave.
Why would you leave?
Don't leave. Don't leave. The next section is when we get to respond.
All
Okay,
right.
yeah,
Go ahead.
don't go.
So at the last meeting, there were a number of Kamiakin High School drama class students who spoke during public comment. So I wanted to follow up with the board that Matt Scott, our Assistant Superintendent of K-12, and Rhonda Pratt, our Director of Secondary Education, and I met with Principal Chris Chellan to just learn more about the situation. There's currently this year one drama class at Kamiakin, and the class this year has 22 students. After registration for next year, there were 15 students who selected the class as their first elective option. And so elective courses are really driven based on student interest. And so there's a question at this point about whether there's enough enrollment to run the class for next year. A couple of things I just want to highlight and point out. I didn't understand that the drama class isn't directly connected to the drama production. So I'll come back to the drama class in just a minute, but there will definitely be drama productions at Kamiakin next year that will continue. And so students will have the opportunity to participate in drama, and the drama productions will go on. In terms of the class, though, Chris is continuing to monitor student registrations. New students are still enrolling in the school. School schedules aren't set. This is the time where, or I should say, student schedules aren't set. This is the time where principals are refining their master schedules and balancing courses. So Chris is going to assess and determine whether he can run the class for next year. So it's still in process.
More about recruiting kids, maybe. What class size would you typically need for the class to be?
It
Definitely on the schedule.
Yeah, it varies, and typically the elective courses do run smaller sometimes than core classes because students have to take the core classes. And these are the issues. It's like we have to find this balance of we don't want to not have AP, we don't want to not have choir and music and drama and all of the opportunities for students. And then but there is a point where, for example, the AP courses that we talked about previously, when there's only like 3 students enrolled, it's just not viable. So this year at 22, the class ran. I will say there are other like music classes that are smaller. So he's just trying to find what that, so I can't give you a concrete number. I can't say once it reaches this, it'll go. But it's somewhere between that 15 and 22, and so it's just a matter of looking at what staffing is available and if he can balance some things and potentially run the class. So it's not out of the question. It's still on the table and he's taken a hard look at it.
Okay. And just real quick, before we get into superintendent board member reports, so to share an official visit. So when board members visit schools, obviously we show up to events and those things with what's on the calendar. Official visits we schedule through the superintendent. They're scheduled with the principal, certain time. Principals know we're coming. Hopefully they're sharing with the staff that will be in the buildings, whatnot, however they want to do that. Typically when we visit, I don't want to speak for other board members, but I know I look at the school improvement plans. I look at other information that I have from previous board reports, anything related to that school to ask questions. But typically when we go on a visit, the principal or the administrator that day kind of sets the tone for the visit. So they walk us around to the school. If they want to take us in classrooms, or if we ask to go in classrooms, they'll take us. But really the crux of the visit is outlined by the principal or the administrator and what they want to share with us or take us through, unless we specifically ask about it. So that's kind of how an official visit works. So we will get to superintendent and board member reports. So we will start with Annie here, last report. reports.
It's the last report, guys. It's going to be a long one. Get ready. Okay, so today we had our 2025-2026 school superintendent advisory council meeting. So we got to welcome all the new people. We surprisingly had the most people from Southridge. I think we had 4 new people from Southridge. So that was super cool. And then we got to know everyone. We introduced everyone to the group. We discussed our plans for the future, which was a little bit sad, but it's really cool to hear what everyone's doing. And then we also discussed meeting topics for next year for Mr. Hansen and then the new superintendent student advisory council to discuss. And it was a lot of the topics that we went through this year: financial literacy, communication with our counselors and students and parents, safety in our schools. So a lot of those will be continuously spoken about next year. So it was a really good meeting. That's all I got.
Thank you. Dr. Pierce?
Okay, few things. So my school visits since our last meeting, I did get a chance to visit Amistad, had a great visit there, and got to congratulate the staff on earning their Washington Achievement Award, and also be there for the dedication of the Artswa mural. That's new mural in their cafeteria. Beautiful mural. WA Arts is a state-funded arts program that brings art into the schools. So that was awesome. I also got to visit Vista and Fuerza and Cottonwood, Tritech, Chinook, and Legacy. So it's been great just being out in schools and seeing all the great things going on. I wanted to mention a few events. I'm not going to talk much about the board's Academic Excellence Awards because I figured you might want to, but I thought it was a big success. We had our Teaching Bridge signing day yesterday. So this is the 3rd cohort of future teachers that are now signed up to attend WSU. So these are students who are in our teaching academy and are now going on to WSU Tri-Cities full-time to pursue a teaching degree while working part-time as substitute paraeducators in our district. So it's a great program. We're really excited for that 3rd cohort, and it really helps to kind of foster students through to the next step in post-secondary, still keep that connection with the district, still have that job, and then ultimately our goal is to hire them back in our district. And then I wanted to mention that tomorrow I'll be attending a very special assembly at Tritech, where Representative Connors is going to be honored and recognized for her efforts in sponsoring and working to pass House Bill 1414 and House Bill 1722. And both of these bills are going to help improve CTE students' access to career opportunities. The one bill establishes a task force to modify laws, rules, and policies that are creating barriers right now for students. And then the second bill is about lifting state restrictions for 16 and 17-year-old CTE students so they can start programs or test for licenses and certifications. So it's great to know people, right, who know people. And and so we do appreciate Representative Connors, and so I'm happy to get a chance to go to that assembly tomorrow. They're having it twice because there's a morning session of Tritech and an afternoon session of Tritech. Did you want to ask a question?
I do, yeah. So when you say that it's lifting the restrictions for 16 and 17-year-olds to be able to do certification, does that mean that more of our programs, more of our students will be able to leave with certifications from our programming? Is that?
That's my understanding. Now, I'm not a total expert on these things, but I think I did read through the bills today. So if our friend, Mr. Connors might be able to fill in.
I'm not great, I'm just living with greatness. So that's what the bill does will allow these kids to be employed. Because right now, while the Tri-Tech students are coming out, they say, okay, we've got our certification to work on cars, to do these things. The law states you cannot be hired until you're 18. So we have these 16 to 17-year-olds that want to work, have proven they have the skills, they pass the tests, but the laws state that at 18, you can hire them, but you've got to jump through all these hoops, and it's become super restrictive. Exactly, they can't do a lot of things. And so this task force will work on changing these laws, saying these kids can now get jobs, and will allow these kids with these certifications to now go out into the workforce under the age of 18, as long as they have proven themselves worthy of those skills.
They've successfully completed a CTE preparatory program and all of that.
Correct.
So, yeah. And then just my last thing real quick, applications for student school board representative-elect were due May 15th. I received 4 applications from school principals, and so now we've got to work and get the interview committee set up for early June. Last year, board president, board vice president, our incoming student board rep, and Matt and I did the interviewing, and then the board selected. So is that how you want to proceed this year? Do you want to proceed differently? You can think about it, talk about it. I'll send it in update and double check with Gabe, and he can let me know. And then if you haven't taken, last I was told, but maybe more people took it, 3 of you had taken the board self-assessment survey. So if you haven't, please take it as soon as you can, because WASDA needs the data to help prep for the upcoming June 4th study session, retreat, and then graduation speeches. Don't forget, due May 30th. Send them to me by May 30th.
A lot of to-dos.
A lot of
Got it.
to-dos.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Mike?
Well, I now know what I'm doing tomorrow. I'm going to TriTech, so I forgot about that. So thank you for the reminder.
You're welcome.
Really, again, I've been out of town a tremendous amount the last couple of weeks, so I have not done much. But the highlight, though, is I did get to go have lunch with Annie, and it was great fun. It was fun to spend time with her, learn more about her future endeavors. And again, it was just really special to go do that. So again, thank you for making the time. And also, I'm going to make an attempt to get to Amistad. It's been a couple of years since I've been there, but I have been before. So I want to make sure that gets on the calendar directly.
Thanks, Mike. Dr. Miller?
First of all, again, we really appreciate everybody that comes to the board meetings and shares input. Often there's things that we may not always know, and certainly understand that the board can't do everything. Our job is predominantly oversight and trying to help direct the executive. But there are things that principals and superintendents can do, and sometimes we can help encourage those. So we appreciate your input. Also, I appreciate all of those from Amistad that are here today. My mom was a kindergarten teacher for 30 plus years, and I appreciate the effort and the work that you guys do. I know often it is very challenging and very difficult. I think a little context, with the required action plan and the RIC, the required introductory cohort that was mandated by the state. I think most of us agree that's not as was expressed. This is a very challenging. A lot of the population of the school have a lot of very specific challenges and difficult issues that they're dealing with. I think, and as I've expressed before in other areas, numbers can be manipulated to show almost anything. And so you've got to be careful with taking individual numbers. Unfortunately, the state sometimes will take specific numbers and come to conclusions. I think it's what I think really, I hope we walk away from this is simply saying, how can we even better support these kids who come from very difficult backgrounds? We appreciate the work that you all are doing. We appreciate everything that is being done there. But I think part of it is saying, hey, are there things we can do that will help them even more? And I think that's the idea behind the required introductory cohort and the required action stuff is to say, how can we better support these kids? Because unfortunately, the kids are still struggling, and they're struggling for a lot of reasons that have nothing to do with the school or what's going on in the school. They're struggling because a lot of times it's things that are not in our control as educators. But how can we still help them even more? And so thank you for your efforts. I hope when you hear these things, I apologize if you felt it was addressing you personally. Sometimes we're just looking across the board saying, what can we do? How can we help these kids? And I think we're all trying to pull in the same direction. So thank you for your efforts. Thanks for what you're doing. And thanks for being here. We appreciate you expressing your passion. The other thing, we did have the Kennewick School District Academic Excellence Banquet. I appreciate the efforts that Dr. Pierce made. It had been an idea that I had floated out there, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to celebrate some of the top academic students in the districts, as well as their parents, who obviously have invested a great deal in their children, as well as some of our amazing teachers we have in the district. And so I want to thank Dr. Pierce. You did a wonderful job of putting that event together. It was beautifully done. I have heard wonderful comments from families, from educators, as well as from some of the students, that they got to feel very special and felt like they were noticed, which often in academics, the sports, the athletes, or the people in different clubs get the attention, and sometimes the academic students who just really study hard and do very well in school can feel overlooked. And so it was an opportunity for them to feel celebrated, for their parents to feel celebrated, and for some amazing teachers. I know there was one teacher, I wanted to ask him if he was Michael Phelps, because he had a dozen kids that said he had been such an impactful teacher for them. So we have some really great things going on in the district, and I appreciate the efforts that everybody is making. We've got some great students. I look forward to graduation and seeing more of our students like you, Eddie, that have really done amazing things. You've got a great class. So thank you.
Brittany.
Sorry, I had to write down a note. Dr. Miller reminded me of something I wanted to do, which was go and meet that teacher from Kamiakin. Okay, so real quick, just to report on board activity, I also attended the academic award banquet. I was very impressed with the evening, and I know that that was a large effort from the administration. So thank you to Dr. Pierce and her team for putting that together, because it was very well done. So thank you, everybody. I actually had the opportunity to attend it as a board member and a parent. So I was wearing two different hats that night. And from a board member perspective, could not have been more proud than of the students that we have, and the teachers. Was really impressed and blown away by the caliber of the teachers that we have in our district that were there that night. But then as a parent, I particularly appreciated, my daughter is one that works hard, but she will not be on the stage as a valedictorian at graduation. And it was very nice for her to be appreciated that night. And she met a couple of friends there that she hadn't seen since 5th grade. And the comment that she said as we were going home was, "Mom, they're not going to be valedictorians either," but they were there that night too. And so it was nice to just really call out the students who are pushing themselves and working hard, but that may not necessarily have the numbers to prove it. So I think that we accomplished what we set out to do with that evening. So the other thing that I've done that's been light for me, I've scaled back on school visits just to get a kid graduated and out the door. But I did attend a Mornings with Mom at our local elementary school, and that was wonderful. It's always great to be back with the littles again, and just to see how enthusiastic everyone is about school. So I am really glad that the Amistad staff is here tonight, because it's evidence that there has been a big miscommunication. And so I'm glad there's a chance for us to clear that up tonight. So I'm not exactly sure, I'm not attuned to exactly how information dispels from, what we do and talk about here and how it comes to your ears. I don't know whether or not you took the time to watch the board meeting. Okay, yes, okay. So then the miscommunication is on my end, because I've heard three concerns. The first one I've heard is that there was some kind of messaging sent that the academic gaps at Amistad are because of inexperienced staff. Okay. The other thing I'm hearing is that the reason that there are academic gaps at Amistad is because the demographics of the staff don't match the demographics of the school, correct? Okay, and then the other concern I heard was that board members say they're visiting schools, but are they really doing it? Okay. Those are the three I wrote down. There were probably others, but those are the three I'm prepared to address tonight. Unfortunately, I think all three of those things came from things I said at the meeting last week. Okay, so I want to clear up what happened and explain to you why the comments I said, why I said what I said, why I said what I said, and I hoped that I had explained myself, but it's evident I did not. What we were discussing last week is a report that we have to turn in to the state, because Amistad has been a school in improvement for 3 years now. And so totally new to me. I've been on the board for a little over 18 months. I've never been through this process before where we have to have a public hearing where we go through the report that we're sending into the state. Because I've never done that before, I took some time, and I said that last week, I took some time to actually look through the report. And there were a lot of things in the report that concerned me and that I disagreed with. And those were the things that I talked about. I asked, what I meant to ask was, is it really true that we have inexperienced staff at Amistad? And if we do, is that really the reason that we don't have the academic performance we're hoping for? That's what I meant to ask, but it sounds like what happened was, it sounds like what was communicated to you was that I believe that we have inexperienced staff at Amistad, and that that's the reason why we don't have the performance we're hoping for. That is not my belief at all. In fact, I feel quite the opposite. In fact, if you'll go back and listen, there was a point at which I said something about inexperienced staff. Dr. Pierce tried to explain something, and I said, I'm playing devil's advocate, which means that I'm actually on your side. I actually do not think that we have inexperienced staff, as very appropriately pointed out. We don't have inexperienced staff at Amistad. And even if we did, I would not attribute that. I said, I don't want to be coming after our teachers and saying that it's our teachers' fault that we're having the performances that we're having at Amistad. So that is not my belief whatsoever. I apologize. I've got some in my mouth, but I still have to take a drink if I'm going to be able to continue. Okay, as far as the demographics of the staff is concerned, exact same thing. I brought that up because in the report, it says that the reason that we have the academic gaps that we have at Amistad is because our staff does not reflect the demographics. I think that's a pile of crap. I don't think that it has anything to do with it. You will never hear anything coming out of my mouth that diversity and that demographics, I mean, I think representation matters. We can have a conversation about that. That is essential. But I don't think that it's because, I don't think that the demographics of our staff has anything to do with the performance of our students. So I want to clear that up too, because I think that misunderstanding probably came from me as well. But what I was intending to do was call out the administration that had written the report, call out the people. And that's how I started my statement last week saying, who put this report together? Because I wanted to know where it was coming from. So we've talked about school visits a little bit. Gabe did a great job of outlining that. Part of this is because I'm still new on the board, but I haven't been bold enough to really make the school visits what I want them to be. Part of that is because I'm still kind of learning what I'm allowed to do. And so my school visits have been, just like Gabe said, entirely directed by the principals. I show up, I sit in their office. If we're going to sit in their office, we sit in their office. If they want to take me around the school, I go around the school. So it really is directed by the principals. I've done 2 visits to Amistad. The first one, I was able to go around, went into a few classrooms. We only go into the classrooms that the principals take us into. The second visit, we sat in the office and talked only about data. Both visits are great. Both visits are informative, but I would love to come into your classrooms, but I can only do that if you invite me. So if you would like me, I will come and spend a full day there. You can give me a stack of papers to grade. I will help kids read. I will do whatever it is you want to do. I think I'm an approved volunteer for the district. So please, I would clear out an entire day, several days to come into your classroom and see what happens. I'd be so happy to do that. And then just on a personal level, this is background information you may or may not have about me, but I speak Spanish. I understand Spanish. I used to speak it. Me falta la práctica, but I understood every word. Where is she? Yep, I did not need a translator. Te entiendo perfectamente. So like I have a minor in Spanish. I spent 2 summers of my life in Guatemala. I spent 5 years speaking Spanish in my congregation for church. I've taught English across the street at B5 for 3 years to our mostly our Afghani ladies. Most recently, I actually have had to take this year off. I'm hoping to go back next year. So I am very like-minded to you. So I just want to make sure that that's understood, that any comment that I made last week, it's very clear it did not the messaging was not right. And I hope that what I've said tonight has been able to clear that up. I'm on your side. I want to see Amistad excel. There's no reason whatsoever that it can't. We just need to figure out what's really the problem. It's not inexperienced teachers. It's not the demographics of the teachers. But we need to figure out how we can better support the staff and the students, whatever that looks like. And that's really my intention last week, was to say, I'm not sure the report really focuses on the problem. So what really is the problem? So if we can figure that out together, that'd be great. You have my support. You're there every day. You tell us what the problem is and we'll figure out how to solve it. So, okay.
Thank you. Micah?
Berta, me alegro poderle hablar en español. Gracias por estar aquí todos. Me alegro escucharles los mensajes. Yo viví en El Salvador por 2 años y también entiendo español y hablo más o menos bien, entiendo todo. Y estoy un poquito confundido al mensaje, la verdad es porque siento que estamos peleando y and I'll do the rest in English. I almost feel like we're fighting here. I didn't know that we said something bad about you guys. I didn't feel like that was the case. So we had a mandatory report from the state and we try to ask questions. I mean, I think one of the things I said was that I just wanted to have the best teachers. I don't know how that's controversial. As for me, I don't really care if the teacher's young or old or 2 years or 10 years or brown or white. I literally don't care. I just want the teacher to be a really good teacher. And so if that offended somebody, I'm sorry, I don't back down from that position. I believe that that we should hire the best people, period, end of story, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation. I don't really care. So when I do my school visits, I usually have something I want to accomplish when I get there before I go. All my school visits are different. Sometimes lately I've been going to a lot of cafeterias because I'm working on improving everybody's food. And we have a summer pilot program coming this year. We're gonna have new food for the kids, and I'm really excited about that. Taking away the processed food, taking away the dyes, the seed oils, that kind of stuff. So we have I don't know that everybody knows that, but I've been eating lunches in the school. I'm seeing some head shaking. I guess some people want to eat that stuff, but no, I don't, and I don't want our kids to eat it and the sugars. And so I've been eating lunches in schools forever. So sometimes that's what I go to school for. I think I've been to Amistad 2 or 3 times this year, visiting Laura and Piper and some other people in the tier programs. As a matter of fact, there's one picture on my desk, and guess what it is? These are Amistad kids. I think I've been to Amistad 2 or 3 times this year. But I'm going to be honest with you. And I've heard this before, is that when I get deep in the classrooms, I feel very welcome, but I do not feel welcome walking the door, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. Last time I waited for Julio for 45 minutes and almost nobody talked to me. And I've delivered shoes, I've delivered clothes, I've done several things. And I mean, when I talk to the teachers, they're very excited, they're very happy. I'm just going to be honest though, when I walk in that front door, Tracy is like rolling over her grave right now that I'm saying this, but I'm just going to be honest. I think that the welcome from that staff and from Julio could be better. So that's all I'll say about that. Again, I don't know exactly what the anger is for. I think you guys are great, and I don't know. We did have the Excellence Banquet. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but we have a banquet where we're trying to support kids who are really trying to achieve high things. So we have kids who, for example, are valedictorians who get straight A's, but they won't take very many hard classes. Where we have some kids who might get 3 A- or a B+, but they've taken all AP classes or something like that, right? And their schedule is much, much more demanding, or they're graduating from high school with an associate's degree. So we kind of did a weighted GPA and then wanted to honor those kids. And so we did a really nice banquet, and they brought their family members and their students or teachers that really affected their lives. And that was really cool. So that was what the banquet they're referring to. This week I visited Canyon View Elementary, Kathy, and there's an example of a visit. But with her, I didn't know Kathy very well. So her and I spent a lot of time talking. We went down to visit some classrooms. She let me off on my own. I visited some rooms on my own. We talked about several different issues and challenges and positives and stuff like that, and ways that I could support and help and understand. So that's kind of what that visit was about. A lot of it was just getting to know Kathy. I was actually a guest speaker at something called Lincoln Day Dinner this week, and it was really cool. It was really fun. We had hundreds of people there, and it was a really exciting thing. I was able to bring one of our students there to the banquet with me and introduce him to some people that he can connect with for his life after school. So that was really exciting. But my two highlights of the week I want to explain are these two things. These are the things I will end on. Oh, before I say that, I just want to make sure that Christine Benson and our staff in the food department, they are absolutely fantastic. And I just want to make sure they know that. I was at a soccer game and a kid came up to me and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Mr. Valentine?" I said, "Oh, okay." And he said, "I want you to know that thank you for fighting for lacrosse." And we kind of fought for lacrosse, and he ended up, because of what he says, because of we fought for lacrosse, he ended up getting a scholarship to Boise State, and he's playing there. It's a freshman, and he got a lot of playing time this year, and he's really excited. He just wanted to thank us. So I just wanted the board to know, thank you, that he thanked me, but he really should be thanking all of us for that. And then the second highlight of my week was I was coaching a soccer practice when I had little sixth grade girls, and there was a bunch of them out there, and we were right in the Hapo, by where the Dust Devils play. And it was right before a game, and the national anthem started going off, and the entire team, 20-something girls, stopped and put their hand on their heart right in the middle of practice and listened to the national anthem. And I was so proud. It was awesome. They just did it, and it made me very, very proud to see that. And so I just want to say that I recognize that publicly, and with that I yield my time.
Thank you, sir. I won't get into the banquet too much. I think everybody did a good job talking about that. So attended that. Look forward to doing it again. Been to Amistad before, haven't been this year, but I will try to get there before the end of the year. Sounds like that's needed. I will say, if we're only as good as the information we have. So if based on what I had last week or last meeting, if I shared something that came across as not supporting teachers, that was not the intent. So I apologize for that. I absolutely support you guys there. I think you guys are fantastic. I even had the opportunity to speak to an educator who shared some things with me, provided me with some more information and more context, which I did not know. And I appreciate that conversation. So I will leave with, we're accessible. You can reach out anytime. We would happily have phone conversations. We would meet you. We would come to schools. We would do all of that stuff to hear what's going on. So we appreciate you guys being out here. Thank you to everyone who spoke tonight. And so with that, we will move on to our next item of business, reports and discussions. And we'll kind of pause. If anybody else was planning on leaving, they can step out now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's not fun from here on out.
I mean, it is the budget.
Oh.
Super exciting.
Is the budget. First report is our preliminary budget 25-26.
Yeah, good evening.
Brillhart will share with us.
Good evening, everyone. I promise I will try to be as entertaining as I possibly can be. So tonight, we are getting close to the end of budget preparation. And so tonight, again, we're going to kind of recount and revisit a lot of the topics and the items with better numbers tonight than we did obviously about a month ago when we first reported. But of course, our end goal is get to that finite number by the middle of June. And when we present the final budget to the board, we'll definitely be more drilled in than we are even tonight. So the presentation outline, again, we're going to kind of just real briefly go over where we currently are right now within the 24-25 budget. And then, of course, we're going to look at the anticipated revenues and expenses for next year. And then also just kind of recap with what the budget process and timeline is. Of course, legislative session ended on April 27th. As of last night, the governor actually did sign it into law, so we're no longer waiting. So all budgetary items for K-12, to my knowledge, everything was that the Senate and the House passed. The governor signed into law, so that's a good thing. No changes there. The IPD is set at 2.5% for 25-26. And there were some changes to employer-paid benefits such as the retirement rate and also the medical insurance. So the retirement rate actually that what we'll contribute per employee actually went down. So kind of how that works is, there's a big pot of money at the state level that they use to fund all retirements around the state for obviously the next foreseeable future. And so whatever that threshold is from their projections of what they're going to need for the immediate future, they basically ask us to either contribute more or contribute less based upon that projection. So for next year, like I said, that actually is going to go down, which is a good thing for us. That means less revenues that we are actually sending to the state for that need. The bad thing is health insurance costs are going up. So we went from about $14,136 per employee to now we will be paying $15,684. So that's approximately about 11% increase. So one thing I'll show you on a future slide is that retirement rate and medical insurance rate. It really, while there's a savings, but there's also an expense, it really kind of cancels each other out. So it's almost like a net zero difference. So, but like I said, I'll get to that here in a second. There was a change in MSOC allocation. So that increased $81 per student, which equates to roughly about 5%. So that's a good thing. And of course, one of the biggest changes was in special ed. Obviously, that was a big focus for this session. Tier 1 went up about 4% and Tier 2 went up about 9%, which we'll again kind of see. We'll show you how that impacts us. So when we come back in June, on June 18th, we will have this ready. Of course, this is a reflection of our 24-25 budget. And again, one thing I do want to just take note and just highlight is our projection for, as of when this was built this time last year, the projection at that point was for us to have a budget shortfall about $5.5 million. That is not going to be the case. And again, I'll point that out in a future slide. So that is a good thing. So enrollment projections. So the way we do this, we formulate it out, and it's simple math. Is it drilled down to the exact science, exact number? No, because as we've expressed before, you literally just don't know who's going to show up day one, especially with that kindergarten class. That's the hardest group to project. So as of right now, again, when you trend this out, it looks like, again, our kindergarten class. Again, you just look at the trends and you look at that birth rate data. It looks like we're going to be a little bit up with the difference of about 15 kids. Again, could be accurate, could be inaccurate. But in total for basic ed funding, it looks like we are trending to be about 60 students down in basic ed funding. Now, as you'll see, I kind of tried to highlight in here, this does exclude Running Start. Obviously, that's another item that we have to report to the state for funding because we get different dollar amounts for those kids. So the way I tried to show you guys this, how it's presented out, this is exactly how we present our enrollments to the state for funding purposes. So we get different monies for ALE and different monies for Running Start, different monies for basic ed and so on and so forth. So just, like I said, just for simplicity purposes, that's how we had it laid out. So that's a big thing. Now, one thing that is something to obviously take an eye on is our ALE enrollment is actually trending to be up. And that's your Endeavor, your Phoenix, your MCP, and your MCP Online. So not a big surprise. Again, those are choice programs that are expanding, and that's a good thing. So, but again, just wanted to make sure that we kind of highlight that as kind of as a separator, because again, that's how we get those fundings is also separated out. So any questions on enrollment? Yes, sir.
Yeah, just quickly, remind me, how accurate were we on our 24-25?
So we are, actually, I think it's in this, yeah, basic ed enrollment. So for 24, you talk about this current year?
Yeah, how close were we to last year?
We are net positive, I believe, 20 students, I believe, in total for basic ed.
So we underestimated, we had a conservative estimate.
Yes.
We underestimated 20 students.
Yeah, and it depends
a
on
lot
which.
of tier students moved over, right?
I'm sorry?
Didn't some of the tier students move to basic gen ed?
Tier students. Special needs students. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. They are counted in basic ed as well. We just get additional monies for those students for their special needs. So yeah, yes, sir. So
essentially, though, our budget estimate for this academic year
pretty accurate.
Was pretty accurate.
Pretty accurate. Like I said,
within 20.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I think the last month I looked at was maybe February, and like I said, it was a difference of about net positive, like 21, maybe 22 students. And I'm sure it's different today, just because again, that's
So roughly 1,744 people.
Yes, sir.
Or 440 people, excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay.
FTE
Or
though.
FT,
FTE.
yes,
Yeah,
FT.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yep.
perfect.
Yep. Okay. So getting into, again, these keyword here's preliminary. Of course, again, this changes in the moment, it seems like. So basic ed enrollment, as we said, for this year, like I said, we're up about 20 students. For basic ed enrollment, again, in this category right here, those 60 students equate to, roughly about $10,000 a student. So that means we're going to be down in basic ed funding about $600,000. Okay? Because again, whether or not you have a shift of kids going from this category to that category, it's kind of irrelevant to a certain extent, because again, basic ed's basic ed. So again, $600,000 short there in comparison to this year. For special ed enrollment, as we talked earlier, this year we budgeted about 2,700 students for special ed, and we have less students receiving special ed services, which is a good thing. But that equates obviously to dollars that again, we're just not receiving because we have students that are not qualifying for special ed services, which, like I said, that's a good thing. And obviously we manage that. But next year we're projecting to have about 2,620 special needs students. And this was as of last week when we projected this out. So in comparison to how we're being funded this year, that's about $875,000 that we will not capture, because again, those needs aren't technically there under those 80 students. But
Now, Tom,
because of those, I'm sorry. What?
I was going to say something really quick. I look at that as a positive, like our teachers are doing a good job.
Yep.
And it's really not always just about like the special ed kids like being sent. It's really about the receiving side of it, right? Is like the teachers who are teaching gen ed are receiving those kids, helping them adapt, working with them and integrating them in a lot better. And that's like a really positive thing. Negative for the budget, but positive for the teachers who are doing that. So
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because special ed funding it's kind of restricted to a certain extent, so it's not necessarily basic ed money that can be used somewhat fluidly, I guess you would say. So that lost revenue, it's you also have lost expenditures too, so it kind of equals out to a certain extent. So because, like I said, that restriction. Now going back to the legislative session, because they, like I said, pump more money in those tier 1 and tier 2 calculations. For us, that's going to equate to about 1.8 million more in revenue that we are currently not getting this year. That's even with the 2,620 student drop of about 80 students. Okay, so that's a good thing. Transportation funding, as of right now, we're expecting that to go up about 400,000 between this year and last year. That 2.5% IPD inflator. That equates to about 2.2 million more dollars that we'll receive. I talked earlier about insurance cost. Again, that 11% insurance cost for all of our employees that are currently on the insurance, that's going to cost the district about an additional 3.9 million. But that retirement rate, like I said, we're going to be spending less than 3.7 million. So like I said, it kind of balances each other out, kind of like I said, just cancels each other out. So MSOC cost, again, because we're getting those $81 per student more, that equates to about additional 1.4 million in revenue. And then EP&O levy, that has not changed. Obviously, we know what levy amount we're going to be getting for next year, which is 1.8 million. And then LEA. So LEA has been kind of hard to project out because there have been some changes with the legislative session. And honestly, it's kind of been difficult because some of the projections, when you use the calculations through OSPI, it's just hard to kind of quantify. And so with the AV that we're looking at and we're projecting at, right now we're projecting to be about 15.5 million due to, again, kind of modest AV growth, and then also our enrollment kind of staying stagnant to a certain extent. But even still, because, like I said, of the legislative changes, that's still going to pump us about 1.3 million more in revenue, which is good. So total net, you're seeing total preliminary revenue change of about 5.4 million.
So just to be clear, we basically had a $2 million change since our April meeting in that LEA.
LEA.
Was it just the
Just the calculation.
Just the calculation changed?
Yep.
Okay, and was that because of legislative changes?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, so basically they just changed the formula a little bit?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, so OSPI does a pretty good job updating their tools with whatever the latest and greatest information they have just to project out, so.
And that was one of the areas we had a big concern with,
Mhm.
So it sounds like the legislature actually did something to moderate that.
Yes. Mhm. Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah, although not to go all into that now, but
Yeah,
they
it's-
also raised
wanted
the
them to do more.
levy
Yeah.
lid
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
districts
They did
on the
nothing,
west side.
they did nothing
so
to help
it's-
us in the
yeah.
legislative session. They're
They're-
increasing taxes everywhere.
It looks
We're looking
like
at
it
an
here, but
additional
it's not.
15 grand just in gas as of July 1st, just to add on top of what we're already budgeting for. So they did absolutely nothing in this session to help public schools. Unless you are a rich west side school, now you can raise more money. Everyone else, good luck. It was a terrible session, terrible session. That's my opinion.
I will continue.
Yeah, you go.
I know, it's already-
Pandora's box again, so we don't get off on a tangent, but.
All right, let's talk about staff and non-staff, staff and non-staff costs, some changes. So, so no changes, again, for this current year. We are actually still trending at budget, which is good for staffing costs. That means, again, kudos to our cabinet members and our directors. Kudos to them on making sure that, again, we keep an eye on our FTEs, because that's what ultimately is our number one cost is our staffing. So we want to make sure, like I said, we're staffing to what our students need, but we don't overstaff, obviously, because we're obviously going to overspend, and that's going to be our problem. So for K-5 certified staff, last meeting, I think we said we were going to be net down 4.5 positions. That as of right now, today, that's a net negative of 4. That's why you see that funding change of 571,000 to 508. No middle school, high school staff changes. Alternative ed staffing changes was about 2.8 FTE. But if you see below, I want to make sure I pointed this out, and I think I did this in our last meeting too. That 2.8, again, those are all federal and grant funded. That is not basic ed funded. And it's just simply just due to certain positions just not qualifying anymore for those revenue streams. So that equates to about 355,000 less, but that's less money we're also getting in Fed as well. So it's kind of restricted funds.
And I would just like to point out those positions, those are just positions not being filled through attrition, and these are
Yeah,
not
thank you for pointing that
RIFs.
out. Yeah, no RIFs. Yep, that's right. Thank you for pointing that out. So with our additional special ed funding, and some of our, I guess you say, kind of new programming needs, one of the things we are going to expand on is some of our staffing with CET in Tier 3 and Tier programming. So that's going to equate to about $831,000 of additional. But again, if you go back to this previous slide, where am I out here? As you can see, we're receiving about 1.8 million more in funding for SPED. So obviously, we'll be able to take that on. So
Really quick, with 80 less students in the SPED program, will we see changes in staffing, or how will that affect?
potentially, yeah, potentially. I mean, that's always, you're trying to right size that, based upon student needs. And I mean, it's such a moving target, because, these 5 students may require X FTE, and then tomorrow the 5 students require Y FTE, just based on their needs. So, but yeah. Other support staff, again, these are items that we're budgeting for. Maybe we're not necessarily going to fill, but basically like support staff in the form of like secretaries or maybe additional staffing to help with HR items. And obviously we've talked about that Lamson custodial position. Again, we're budgeting for them. Don't know if they're going to come to fruition or not, but like I said, this is something we're planning for in the future. Projected increase of staff costs, again, with IPD. It was about 2.4 million. We talked about that a little bit in the previous slide. Certificated class pools, that hasn't changed since our last meeting. And then the CTE funding. Right now, our CTE funding, we're going to be adding 1.2 FTE to CTE. But again, that's kind of restricted money. Those are monies that those kids generate because they're taking a CTE course. So of course, that's an expansion of CTE programs. So it's kind of almost like a pass-through almost. But again, that's 152,000. And then preliminarily, basic ed funding, the staff-related costs is about 3.8 million of additional costs for staffing as of right now. But again, that's a combination of SPED monies, that's a combination of CTE monies, a combination of BEA money. So again, I just want to make sure we understand it's the whole pot, so it's the entire pot. And then as of right now, because again, primarily the change in the budget revenue versus expenditures right now. Last meeting, we were projecting that be about 1.1 million. As of today, we're sitting at to have a deficit of only about 640,000. So if I back up to this slide that I mentioned earlier, when we set this budget last year at this time, we were projecting to be about 5.5 million in the red. And as of right now, like I said, we're projecting to be about 640,000 in the red by budgeting, which is a good thing. And really, honestly, what has happened, our expenditures have went down a little bit and our revenues have went up a little bit, primarily with LEA, primarily for this year. We just got more LEA money than what we anticipated because the AV didn't grow as much as what we had anticipated. So that's primarily the reason. So in 2025-26 budget revenues versus expenditures estimate as of right now, the difference is about 1.62 million as of right now. But again, that'll most likely change by the time we get back here in June, because again, we're still working through those numbers.
Tom, before you move on, will you remind me, I know we talked about this last meeting, but will you remind me the reason for the change from March 12th to April 23rd on the certificated classified pool?
Yeah, there were some items we didn't catch when we ran the projections on March 12th, and so we really got more drilled down more than anything. It wasn't necessarily like our pools actually went up. There were just there was mainly some staffing pools that we did not equate for, like vacation cash out, for instance, things like that. And so that was a mistake on our end. So, but again, we wanted to make sure we're getting more accurate tomorrow than we were back in March 12th.
Sure.
So.
Great.
Let's talk about MSOC real quick, and I apologize, the font's so small. I had a lot of data to put on here. So the main thing I want to highlight, so the top portion are mainly utility cost and items that aren't necessarily what I would call kind of pass-through costs or pass-through items. The bottom portion, these are items that we receive, whether it be through TriTech or whether it be through for running stars or whatnot. Primarily what I like to focus on is everything from the top up. So as of right now, the preliminary 25-26 budget, as you can see for MSOC costs last year was about almost 26 million. Right now we're projecting to be about 28 million. And it's not a big shocker. The biggest things that are going up right now is utility cost and insurance. So one good thing about KSD, of course, we are in an insurance pool with, I believe, 36 other school districts. And within that pool, they rank you by tier, by basically your claims. And we are actually in the highest tier, which is a good thing. That means our premium costs are not going to go up more than at least 8% for this next year. So that's a good thing. I know, it's still 8%. It's still 8%. But I'm glad we're not in tier 2 or tier 3 where you're not guaranteed to go up 15% or 21%. So that's again, something that's not necessarily in our control. All we can do is try to obviously put processes and systems in place to ensure that our exposure rates go down as much as possible. So we'll continue to do that. Transportation costs, we flatlined that. And then also our fleet fuel, we again, this is for buses. This isn't for trucks and so on and so forth. We flatlined that because as of right now, diesel fuel costs are expecting to kind of flatline for this next year. I mean, of course, that could change tomorrow if somebody's bad in the Middle East or something. I mean, who knows? But as of right now, like I said, our best projections based upon conversations we had this week with our supplier, that's what they projected. So like I said, we flatlined that one. And then something else I was going to highlight was curriculum items. So not a big secret. This is going to be a big year for curriculum costs for the district. I mean, we've obviously adopted K-5 CKLA. And so that 1.8 million, I mean, we don't obviously expect that to be, done every single year and obviously a multiplier like that. But again, it's also kind of a reflection of, hey, it's been a few years since we adopted a curriculum item. So that's okay. We have the revenue to do it, and we're going to make sure that we do it right for kids. So, and then down below, again, a lot of these projections below are based on either current contracts or, again, just trends as of right now. One contract that, of course, did go down was our communities and schools. If we remember, we did that. That's set for all through next year. And then career tech, we expect that to go up. I believe we had that at, I think because they're adding kids, I think we projected it to go up. I believe it's 8%, I believe. But again, that's kind of a pass through because those are CTE monies that we're receiving for those kids. And then for food service, that is one budget we don't have finished yet. We were actually working on it this morning. So that's why that section is blank. But of course, we'll have that dialed in when we get back here on June 18th. So any questions related to MSOC?
No, but I just want to make a comment. When I was reviewing the budget for my conversation with the Tri-City Herald a couple of weeks ago, one of the things that really stood out to me was that, there are some things that we have control over here on this spreadsheet, and some things we really don't. So utility costs, insurance, we really don't, transportation, fuel, we don't really have control over those things. But the district has done an incredible job of managing the things that we can control. So for example, the building budget in 2021 was 2.5 million. And despite inflation and all of the things that we're dealing with 5 years later, our building budget is now actually 2.2 million. And so we're doing just as much or more with less. And I just think that that's really important for our community to understand, especially when we have a levy coming up in just a few months, that the school district is being incredibly responsible with the funding that we have. I think that the school district has done a good job of earning the trust of the community and being able to demonstrate with evidence here that we are doing the best that we can. And a lot of our budget problems are things that are out of our control. And as we've just discussed, we aren't always getting the help we need from.
Lowest tax rate, and we have the lowest tax rate and the best financial situation of all the Tri-City schools. So that right there tells you that we're collecting less money per capita and we're doing a lot more with it. So I hope that we're rewarded with a lot of yes votes on the levy. I know everybody out here is gonna be knocking doors. Just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, we don't control the $2 million increase on the property insurance in the last 4 years, but what could we have done with that $2 million? I mean, a lot, so.
Yeah, and I will say our team, they really do a good job monitoring our risk exposure, whether you're talking about cybersecurity, slips and falls, training drivers to be safer on the road, I mean, whatever it may be. I mean, it's a continuation of efforts. I mean, that's never going to stop, but just every single claim we can not have, obviously, is helping our bottom line, let's put it that way. So
Well, you guys are doing a great job.
So wanted to highlight some, some of our ancillary funds. So debt service fund, obviously this pays our debt. So our bond issuance that we still have outstanding, of course, we refinanced our 2015 bond recently. So of course that changed our amortization and what we were going to need to levy moving forward, which obviously saves money for taxpayers, which again, I applaud the board and their leadership in spearheading that. So one thing I do want to highlight, so usually on our bond payments, of course, the way the money comes in, we always want to make sure that when we get our levy in the spring, we usually don't collect as much in the spring because some people delay on their taxes, and so we have to account for that because we want to make sure that obviously we have enough money basically in cash in order to make our bond payment. So technically we always kind of over budget a little bit on our debt service. But of course, if we over budget this year and for some reason we do collect every single one of our levy amounts and everybody pays their taxes on time, then obviously we would just collect less than the next year. Okay. But it's pretty modest. It's only about $100,000. So like I said, it really doesn't impact the total fund, significantly by no means. But one of the things I do want to highlight is, and if you notice, so this would be 25, 26. Technically, this would be tax year 26. This would be tax year 27, tax year 28, so on and so forth. But if you notice, what we are asking our taxpayers to levy for debt service dramatically goes down. That's because we have bond payments going down. We are paying off our debt, and we're not replacing that debt. So consequently, tax rates, as you said, with debt service primarily are going to go down unless we add debt to the district, which, that may happen in the future, but, as of right now, that is not on the foresight, but it could. I mean, who knows? But again, that's something for us, again, to obviously highlight when we are talking about EPNO levy, that, hey, total tax rate, because of our debt service, because of the district's well done job in the past decade of building what we need, our total rate will go down. So, capital projects fund. Again, the majority of our revenues and our expenditures, of course, is going to be tied into our TriTech project, which I know Ryan's going to talk about that in a little bit. So I know, Mike, you had a question about monies coming in, monies going out with the grant funding, the last time we presented about this. So this number of 28,400 on revenues, and especially this number on 28,580,000 on expenditures is drilled down to the exact amount that we have as far as a scheduled payment plan from our architects and our construction manager for this fiscal year. So that is about as accurate as we can get. Now, obviously, we're always going to assume the revenues are always going to be in the rear about a month because obviously we submit for those reimbursements. But we have enough cash, obviously, to carry us through. So, but as of right now, outside of TriTech, we are planning on doing about 1.4 million in capital project outside of TriTech monies around the district. So, and then of course we do have our tech levy that is about 4.7 million. So that is also embedded in capital projects as well. So that's, servers, that's projectors, I mean, so on and so forth. Anything that's tech related, running wires, so on and so forth. But any questions on capital? Okay. Transportation fund. This one kind of looks incomplete, and it does on purpose because if you remember a few months ago, April came and presented about, should we buy buses now? Should we not buy buses now? As of right now, we're still kind of on hold. So that's why you see a big gap in expenditures for this particular fiscal year. So those monies that we're going to receive from depreciation from our buses, again, we're just going to hang on to that, and we will purchase buses when it's right for us. Okay, not necessarily the budget year. It's not that we're socking that money away. By no means. We're just going to buy buses when it's right for us. So whether that's in August, whether that's in September, whether that's in December, whatever that may be, we just want to make sure we time it right with obviously respect to market conditions. And then obviously the 25-26 budget in totality is still in progress. Again, we will have that drilled in. We'll be ready to present on June 18th, which kind of leaves me in my last slide. So again, we're marching along here in this process. So June 18th is our big moment. We will be sending a notice to the paper on Friday, actually, of this week, and we'll have that notice run for 2 weeks, and then we'll have our hearing and our adoption on June 18th. So, any questions? All right. Exciting times. So,
thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Brillhart.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Before Ryan gets into 10-year capital facility plan and capital project update, we'll take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll jump into your presentation, Ryan. Thank you. All righty. Well, get everybody back to their seats.
Of course.
Maybe.
Dr. Miller and Micah will be in here in a second. I don't need a motion. Okay.
Or just
We'll probably do 3.
Yeah.
Got 2 folks probably still using the facilities. Miss Gledhill had to leave early, so she has stepped out. Dr. Miller, assuming you're on call, so your phone's been ringing, so.
We're good. It's just been busy.
All right, let's. There he is. All right, Ryan, you are all set, my friend.
All right. Good evening, Dr. Pierce, members of the board. So we're Ryan Jones, Capital Project Manager. So just really quick, going to hit on our 10-year capital facilities plan, which is really just an update. You've seen this last year, and not a lot of changes to that. And then just hitting on a couple capital projects that are of special interest to the board. So once again, here's the topic overview. And we'll start with the 10-year facilities plan. So this is reviewed quarterly, pretty much, with the facilities executive committee. So here you can see the members. So it's a team of district personnel as well as community members, and we review it and just discuss it and really just try to keep our finger on the pulse of what our long-term planning is. In the 10-year plan yourself, you'll see there's obviously a lot of data, a lot of metrics, and really it's just what size our buildings are, the capacities. Really no change to this slide from last year. this is, again, hits on our acreage. So just kind of the general size of our sites and whatnot. And it also highlights our future school sites. So just those, of course, will be any sites that we'd be looking for future elementary schools and high schools and middle schools. That's what we have as far as our assets.
Really quick,
Mhm.
on these capacities, and I thought there had been a slide in another presentation that we'd had that has shown capacity and current enrollment. I couldn't find it though. I saw one someplace.
Yeah, when we were doing boundary adjustments.
Okay, maybe that's what it was.
Is when we were showing that.
Is there, I guess my question is where are we at in capacity? What is our capacity to actual enrollment? Are we 95% capacity? Are we 70%? 105?
Yeah, let us follow up and kind of get you that.
And even if you can just have it, because that'll give us a better idea.
Yeah, moving forward, and we could throw it in the 10-year plan. And once again, since it changed annually, we could update that along with the ICOS scores.
That would be great. Just gives us a better idea of, if we're at 75% capacity versus 105% capacity, obviously our 10-year plan is going to change pretty dramatically.
Absolutely. And I will say that in the 10-year plan itself, there is the enrollment numbers with projected enrollment. So, but we'll bring it in the presentation just for ease of information dissemination. So once again, the school sites. Any questions on the school sites? We just kind of try to target certain sizes for certain types of facilities. Once again, our portable count hasn't really changed. We haven't had a need for portables, but of course we maintain them. They are an asset, and there's times where we have to have stand-up temporary campuses for major remodels, things like that. So we keep those in our inventory. We move them around as programs require them, but we do have a couple that are in long-term storage, and then some are supporting smaller programs throughout the districts. But really, the cost of moving one once it's not being used, once it's on a site, just isn't worth it. We just keep it there and maintain it. So until there's a need.
And so with the portables, like for instance, Vista says 10, there's no classrooms in Vista.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That can be used to bring people in from portables, or
no,
we don't do that because
this would probably be an exception, in Highlands as well. Those are obviously schools that we're targeting long-term for new schools to increase capacity, but those sites, typically those are actually being used. It's more like this, the Sagecrest, there's kind of been some flux. A lot of the schools that are kind of on the boundaries, the outskirts, whereas, we recently remodeled a school and then we have a shift. And so students that were in portables one year, maybe there's more capacity inside the physical structure, the main building. So it's more typical of that, but you'll find our older schools a lot of times where the counts are higher. Those are actually being utilized because we're trying to increase capacity as we can at those sites to meet those boundary needs.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Okay, so of course, part of this is tracking our SCAP eligibility for all our sites. If you recall, basically it's, a 30-year from when we receive SCAP funds to where it's eligible again. So you'll see in the next couple of years, as we start looking, in the future to potential capital bonds, that there will be several schools that will become eligible, and those, of course, are our targets. Once again, part of the kind of cost sharing between the state and the local funding to try and maximize those dollars and get the better or larger facilities as much as we can. You'll notice one thing we've kind of broken out a little differently. I can't recall if it was this way last year, but we definitely, the high schools, given there's been some additions, best way we felt we could represent that was kind of like a percentage of the campus that will become eligible in a certain year based off square footage. So for instance, Southridge in 2029, 89% is eligible for SCAP funds, whereas 11%, which would represent the addition that recently was put out or was recently built, is out to 2052. So we felt that was a good way to try to represent that. So any questions on this slide? All right, now as we look forward, these are the sites that we've basically identified as one, being eligible for SCAP funding in the near future, but also having needs. And one column we added last year was the auxiliary spaces that are lacking. So when we build a new school, it's not always necessarily about classroom count. It's about all the other support offices that come along with that, having separate cafeteria from separate gyms. So that's kind of what that column is representing, is just, Highlands Middle School, which is different than Chinook because it doesn't have a second gym. And so that's just kind of a change from the last time we presented. But You can see we have some estimated project costs, and we just continue to monitor that. We try to update that as best we can as the industry changes and costs. Fortunately, they seem to be going one way, but we kind of have an idea of what we're going to be asking for in the future as part of long-term planning.
Ryan, real quick, if I may ask, so we're looking to take Highlands right off the gates. We show eligible for funding for 55 million. So is that a complete replacement, or is that just adding the things you're thinking about, or what?
That'd be like a complete replacement.
A complete replacement. And so the SCAP funding, how much will we get from the state versus what we'll have to fund locally? Because I know it's not.
Right. So what it will be is it'll be if we're not eligible for new square footage because of the calculation that they do at OSPI, what it will be is we will be eligible for the existing square footage, which is basically remodel/replacement.
Okay.
And of that square footage, they set a per square foot construction amount. So let's just, I think right now it's in the 300s. They just changed it this last year. Apologize, I don't remember off the top of my head.
That's fine.
Did you remember, Dr. Pierce, recently?
Which?
The cost per square foot that they increased.
I remember it, I'm sorry.
Call it 300.
It's lacking. Yeah, 300. It's above 300. But for years, it'd been living around like 272, which, was greatly outpaced by, what we're cost to build schools. But essentially, they established that as what the cost square foot should be, and they pay 79% of that. So
Gotcha.
Even that existing square footage, we are paying some of that, but it's, they're covering the majority of the existing square footage costs.
Gotcha.
So-
So if we replace the exact same square footage, what they say is 90,000 square feet, give or take, at Highlands.
Right.
So if we replace with 90,000 square feet of a new building, they're going to give us, like you say, 79% of that money. Okay.
Correct. And, it skews once again because it's obviously they're setting a square footage amount and it might not be fully representative of what's out there in the industry, but they are making efforts. The other thing they're working towards, it was great to see that they made that change, but another thing that we'd like them to address is the square footage per student, because once again, it's not just about classrooms, right? It's the auxiliary spaces that bleeds over to, and a lot of times that's kind of reflective of like a classroom itself, and it doesn't really take into account all those auxiliary spaces that are required for like a modern school. So for right now, for an elementary school student, for existence, or for example, it's 90 square foot per student. Well, that really should be going up as more space is required, and that will of course help kind of make up that gap that's kind of out there right now. Of course, it means more money from the state, which I'm sure that's something they're struggling with.
Yeah, they love to give us money.
Yep.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
Yep. Are there any further questions on this slide? Right. Well, that pretty much concludes the presentation for the 10-year plan, and I believe you have a hard copy. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
I couldn't remember. ICOS score has to be above 60, correct?
Correct.
Do we have any issues with Washington Elementary falling below that 66? Do we have any concerns it might fall below that level before?
No, I didn't. Nope.
Okay, perfect.
Once again, a lot of times when you start getting to those levels, you're talking about major infrastructure failure, foundation, things like that. And we're not seeing anything like that. In fact, as you tour Washington, it's actually a pretty nice school. It's got nice finished new carpet. We do a good job. If we talked in previous presentations, we do a good job about protecting our asset or maintaining our assets. Really just comes down to, it's just not how we build schools anymore. And it's kind of that balance between remodel and replacement. Even if you go back to the cookie cutter schools, the Sunset Views, the Lincolns, the Cascades, which were major remodels, even then, sometimes we struggle with those sites because they're struggling for those auxiliary spaces because we are working within the existing footprint. So with some minor additions, but. All right, so on to capital projects update. So once again, this is not a full capital projects update. These are just a couple ones that I know the board expressed interest in. So one, of course, is Tri-Tech core modernization. So we've been, Sherman-El's been on with us for about a month and a half now. So they've been very proactive in getting into the site, into the school, trying to identify any potential issues, because of course remodels are much higher risk than leveling a building and building up new. A lot of unforeseen. So they've been very engaged. Their subcontractors, getting them in there so they fully understand the scope. And the benefit of that is, as we get into the remodel, there's less surprises, because surprises always result in change orders. Change orders always result in higher costs. And since this is a state grant, we do really have kind of a finite number we have to stick to. So budget is very important on this one. So we're doing anything and everything we can to avoid any of those potential large change orders. So, Sherman Oak Construction is excellent. The subcontractors they have on board are excellent. And we really believe this is going to be a very successful project. A lot of our efforts for us as a district right now is just getting the temporary campuses stood up and all the logistics planning for that. As I mentioned before, we'll have students at Fruitland, CBC, and at TriTech proper in the new addition. So, and of course, we'll maintain connectivity to the addition portion of the building throughout. So, but just keep going. It's coming fast. So.
Just a quick reminder on this for everybody. When Ryan says grant funding, it's direct funding from the legislature.
Correct.
Specifically for skills centers. So it's not like this money could be used for any of our schools or anything like that. It's specifically for TriTech.
Yes, TriTech, the skill centers run on a completely different track than our traditional elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, totally different funding track. So, and I know were there any further questions kind of on the reimbursement piece? I know Dr. Broward spoke to it, and I think he covered it pretty well, but is there anything else I could speak more to the specifics of it?
Most of the TriStack stuff is just passed through anyway, correct?
As far, basically we incur costs, we submit for reimbursement, and they've been really good with their turnarounds have been less than a week, which is really fast. So really it's just almost just a temporary shifting of numbers.
Yeah.
So. All right, Southridge hydronic repair. So we've been talking about this for a while. We are still struggling with that alcove. We've had numerous meetings, numerous discussions, multiple site visits trying to, because this point that we're talking about is really the most critical point of that whole system. And when we started getting in the ceiling, there's a huge HVAC duct going through there. There's been a lot of debate on how best to shore that up, and there's been multiple ideas passed back and forth and vetted. And we're nearing completion though. We're probably 2 weeks we'll have finalized drawings and to be followed by that pricing, updated pricing, which we anticipate to be lower than the initial pricing, given the kind of the design build method that we've been going through with the contractor being able to weigh in with the engineer and try to find the best means and methods and the most cost effective way to complete this repair. We continue to monitor it on the roof. No major concerns right now. It's something obviously we have to fix.
What's
go ahead, please.
what's the timeline on this as we get into 90s? I mean, the HVAC stuff's fine, right? There's air and we're not worried about that.
Right. Our air handlers are not a problem. They will not be impacted by this. The contractor is further vetting the cooling side of it, because if you recall, when we were talking about this initially, we were talking about the heating side. So they're working that cooling side to make sure they can give us the same assurances as they did before. But as of now, I haven't been told that we will not be able to cool the building. And even if it came to that where we did have to have sections shut down, we'd obviously try to mitigate as much as possible and isolate and really just try to make sure the impact was minimal as best we can. So,
have we determined who will be paying for this?
No.
That's still
through legal channels.
Okay.
Yes.
It's still in the process.
Correct. Correct.
Wonder if that had come to fruition yet.
And when we have that cost test, get that next estimate, we'll be making some decisions on how to best move forward.
Thank you.
So now those were the two Calvert projects that I had planned to present, but we're obviously doing some summer paving. That's out to bid right now. The Lamson and Horse Heaven Hills parking lots, if you recall, we've broken that out to kind of make it flexible. So depending on what the numbers come in, we can make sure that it fits within whatever budget we've allocated. So if we have to push something off to the right, we can easily do that. So, but just by not accepting an alternate. So, are there any other projects out there that you'd like me to talk about?
No, but did you ever look into that sign?
I did. I drove by it. I don't know who owns it, but it looks like it shouldn't be too problematic to kind of
just like touch up.
Yeah. I did go out and take a look at that.
Faded rain.
Actually, it looked The way you described it, I was expecting something much worse, but it definitely is showing signs of age, you know, so. All right. All right.
Good.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Next up, Alyssa will lead us through K through 12 student growth and proficiency targets. And I've got a lot of questions. Just kidding. Just totally kidding. It's just like, what? I didn't even start yet.
I'm ready.
Didn't start.
You have it.
Oh, I opened it, sorry. I'll close it.
All right, well, good evening. I'm here, it's May, it's the end of the year, and for our annual reporting calendar, it's time to talk about where we're making progress in our annual growth and meeting grade level standards. We want to make sure that our students are growing each year. So I'm going to have a little bit of an overview, just remind you of our reporting calendar, some of our growth data, and then we've been peeking at our Smarter Balance. So I want to share where we're at. It's changing by the minute. So I'll show you where we're at on that one, and then some good work that's going on. I want to start off and just let the board know the window closed Friday, so I don't have it broken down as much as I have in the past. I will follow up with some more details, and any questions that you have, I will get those answers. We just haven't had quite enough time with the window and the board meeting changes. So with that, we'll just jump in. We look at lots of different data, as the board knows. We really need to look at multiple data points. Tonight, we're going to be focusing mostly on growth in reading and math, and that's defined by STAR, and how our students are doing on the STAR assessment. And that window just closed on Friday for our schools. So they've been getting them in. So let's hop in. I just have broad overview comparing last year and this year. For growth, we want to measure how our students are doing, regardless of where they're starting, that they're making typical growth each year. And I've put a star. The yellow star is we've made that indicator, so we've increased by 3%. We did increase up here. I did the star, but I didn't make it yellow because we didn't quite get the 3%. But we are moving in the right direction. So this slide has our growth for reading and math for grades 3, 4, and 5. This one is for 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. Again, some good growth is happening there, especially in 7th and 8th grade. And then we haven't always shared the 9th and 10th grade growth and proficiency, but we wanted to make sure we did that. I'm going to follow up with a little on this one as well. In 9th and 10th grade, we don't assess all of the students. If a student is advanced a year, if they're in an honors class, they're already at grade level or above. So we've given that time back. For example, in 9th grade, it's about 800 students. So it's not a full data set. And we're going to dig into that a little bit. Yes?
If we can go back to the slide, the previous slide. I did have a quick question. So looking here, we're looking at these numbers from last year to this year. Yeah, we're talking about 2 different classes, 2 different groups, correct? So grade 8 in 2024 to grade 8 2025, this isn't the same group of people that we're studying. So really, we should be looking at grade 7
to grade 8.
To grade 8.
If we want to look at the cohort,
right?
Yes.
So which would make the most sense, because classes will vary in terms of their scores, and more likely. So for example, we can say the 3rd graders in 2023 to 24 improved by 3%. The 4th graders in 2024 actually decreased by 1%, right? And that, I mean, this shows us the grades, which may say maybe a look at the teachers, I guess, but not even that really, because this has more to do with the random variability of the class.
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, so, couple things, yes. So at the school level, they're really looking at is this student growing from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year to the end of the year at the school
Right.
level. The current board indicators, and so these come up for
Right.
review with the board every year, so it might be a good time to change them if you want to change that. We have been doing it like, what does grade 6 look like over time?
Right.
Which tells you something about a system and how's the system serving sixth graders, but it doesn't tell you, does this cohort of fifth graders, are they growing over time? And so we can do it both ways or just the cohort way. It's just a matter of whatever the board sets forth and we can talk about it at the upcoming retreat and kind of what you put in place in August, then that drives how we report the data throughout the year.
Yeah. Correct. Which is why I'm bringing it up. And I guess to my fellow board members, that my concern here is random variability based on different class, especially when you start looking at smaller cohorts. So you're looking at a single school, the variability there may not demonstrate actual success or failure. I mean, like you can see here, each class performs slightly differently. And so I guess my point would be is I think longitudinal data, where you're looking at the same group of students more or less over a period of time, might give us better data and better see how the system is actually helping those individual students, whether we're seeing growth year over year. Because when we're given this data, we're not given beginning of year data and end of year data. We're just given each year's end of year data. So just something to think about as we go forward, because I'm not sure this information gives us what we think it's giving us.
All right, I've got some notes. That's helpful.
Sorry to interrupt. To prove my point, if you look at grade 7, like you look at grade 8, you go, wow, there's grade 5 on the slide before, you'd see it going dropping from 57% to 52%. And that might look concerning, but actually, if you look, that grade 4 did 49% the year before. So you actually increased from 49 to 52. So given that cohort, actually, it looks like the cohort did better than the previous year. And so you can misread this information and say, okay, there's a concern here where in fact there may be no concern, or we may say we're doing great when in fact we're not.
Yeah, the longitudinal is a great way to look at it. There are good things to look at by grade level, by school, and then the grade levels you should look at it by teachers as well. So there's lots of factors, regardless of how we look at it. But I've got that down. We can look at that.
Thank you.
And then Alyssa, just interjecting one thing. This is the first year that we have had 9th and 10th graders.
This is with STAR. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So we don't have previous data.
But as noted, that data is
Right,
difficult
it's
to
not
read
though,
because
it's the
there's
kids.
a large portion of people that aren't even included.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah. All right, so that kind of is the overview, very high overview of growth by grade levels. I did look quickly as well. We use that STAR data to help us see what adjustments need to be made, how to indicate if we're what our success is gonna be on Smarter Balance. And to lead up to that, this is when we're peaking at Smarter Balance. I know it's tiny, but this is changing in real time. So I logged in on the 15th and looked, and then yesterday I went in again, and 8th grade had 100 more scores calculated. They're using AI. The scores are coming back so much quicker. It's a day where it used to be 4 or 5 months. So it's exciting that we're able to get these results back much quicker and see how we're doing on them.
Can I ask something really about this? I think I heard it tonight, and I know I've heard similar things from other teachers. I'm a teacher. My class is taking the test right now, right?
Yeah.
So why is it that if a student shows up 3 weeks ago, that the student's tied to me directly and the score impacts my overall setting and numbers when you've had 5% of the time with them all
Right.
year. Or on the other part to that is maybe you're not a resource room teacher, but maybe you're a tier teacher and you've got kids who spend way more time in resource room than actually in your classroom. How, like, is there a way like to attach them to the school as far as metrics goes, but maybe not, I don't want to say penalize the teacher, but I don't think it's necessarily fair as a teacher. You get 3 weeks with a student and maybe
Right.
they don't do well and now your score looks.
Object on that one. I think one thing is we've got to make sure as a system, this data shouldn't be used in any kind of punitive way. This data is to inform teachers of how their students are doing so they know what next instructional steps to take to help the student continue to learn. So the students have to be assigned to a school and assigned to a teacher of record. But if there's any, I mean, that's how the data should be used. It's all about how are the kids doing? And so it shouldn't be a concern. And if it is, I think that's something we've got to look at of why is that maybe concern happening? But I'm saying it shouldn't be a concern that even if the student entered my classroom the day before testing, it's not about taking credit or being, penalized for how the student did. And that everybody would know, right? Like that, yeah, if you had the student all year, then you could say there's a correlation between my instruction and how the student's progressing throughout the year, especially if you're looking at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. But I guess I'm just kind of curious about.
I'm not saying it's
I'm
not saying it's a punitive concern. I'm just saying as
Yeah,
like I look at it like if I was teaching and then all of a sudden I get all my students, I'm looking at the score, I'm like, oh, my score's not meeting the goals that have been set by the school or the district. But I do know that I just got this, this student. And if that student wasn't on this sheet, then I would be meeting it potentially. And I can only imagine that, and maybe I'm wrong, but I would think that these scores get shared within the school and people know your scores and stuff. So I don't know. Anyway.
I think your concern is valid, and I think you're right. People have a tendency to use numbers and use that numbers as validation or manipulate the numbers to tell them what they want to hear, for good or for bad. And so, and there's always the fear that a number can be used against you or used in a punitive fashion. That's why one of the things, like I was saying, looking at longitudinal stuff, it starts to recognize that students are individual rather than, hey, every sixth grader behaves the same. The sixth grade classes behave differently. And I think to Dr. Pierce's point, the most important thing about these numbers is great. Yes, we can look at them as aggregate and that can give us general ideas. But I think more than anything is our teachers, and I'm sure they do this, our teachers are using this to look at individual students. That's
Absolutely.
really where these are beneficial.
Absolutely.
Is saying,
Yeah.
look, yeah, I get a kid I've only had for 3 weeks, but great. That at least gives me a baseline of where I can start working with them, where they're at. And so I would caution teachers, please, I know it's probably a little bit of human nature to look at the aggregates and say, oh, I may or may not be doing well as the teacher at Amistad may not be doing as well as the teacher at Amity Creek. But that's not a fair comparison. Your classes are very different. Your students are very different. That's not the point of this. The point of this is not to say, hey, let's compare this school to this school, because again, we're manipulating numbers to tell us something that may or may not be true. The whole point of this comes down to the individual, and I think that's the point you're making. It's not punitive. This is really a tool that's supposed to be used to help teachers work to the individual students. And that's one of the things, even as we go through this, we have to remember.
Yeah.
The aggregates are beneficial, and yes, we love to meet our goals and expectations, but we can manipulate numbers to meet goals. What's more important is that we're getting these kids to actually progress. And that's what the numbers are really supposed to help us. So if someone moves in 3 weeks before, who cares? It's not reflective of the teacher. It's a reflective of how do we get this kid. It gives us a baseline with this kid to move forward. How can the teacher move forward with this kid?
Maybe I'm not, I'll take it offline.
I think your point is valid, because I think teachers, human nature is, we're going to look and say, oh man, my score is lower now because of this. But I think principals need to understand that's not the point of this. Teachers need to understand that's not the point. The point isn't the aggregate number. The point is the individual student that has the S bar or the score of whatever, and here's where they're lacking, here's where they're deficient.
Yeah, I will add, and then we'll just move on. This is a very broad overview. Where learning is impacted is when teachers are working with kids. And when they have this data and they know how the kids are doing, they're able to help fill in gaps, they're able to push, they're able to intervene. And that's when the learning happens. This is a very broad overview. Okay, I'm gonna move on. We did try in March when I had a mid-year update, we wanted to show that where we were at in STAR is actually aligning and predicting smarter balance. So we've done the same thing with this end of the year. So third grade, for example, with proficiency for grade level is coming in at 44%, and where smarter balance preliminary as of yesterday is right around 45%, with only about half of third graders tested. So we do see that this using STAR to help prepare students, we have the right data. Does that make sense?
With that, I forgot to email you
I know
my
you
question.
like this, yeah. I was ready for questions.
Last night when I was going through all this, and to be honest, I was too tired. Really quick on this is the question that immediately comes to my mind is what has changed? When we see a percentage difference, what are we seeing with are we seeing improved outcomes? Are we seeing testing that's more adequately testing the students, or are we seeing
change between last year and this year, or change between the STAR and the smarter balance?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is the test do we think the score differences? I mean, in the 4th and 5th grade, really the big difference we're seeing is in the 5th grade. But and are the changes due to how they look at the testing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm going to share some bright spots. I think the work of professional learning communities and how we're looking at standards, which means what does the kid need to know? Like, are we preparing them? How are we using data from here to fill in and make sure they know it and they're ready?
So what I'm hearing you say is you feel like we're better preparing them for the test and
for grade level standards.
Okay.
The other thing I think, and Alyssa, help me if I'm off base here, but this one is also trying to show that we want to be able to have STAR data help us see our kids on track to reaching proficiency on the Smarter Balanced Assessment. And when we started STAR, we started with a lower benchmark and so last year there wasn't a great correlation between STAR and SBA. We went with the higher benchmark for STAR and then went back and retroactively applied that benchmark to last year's data to see if the correlation was there. So I think what these slides are trying to communicate are that there's good correlation between the STAR and the SBA.
And we give the STAR all the time, not just 3 times a year, but do little checks.
That. It was ready. The STAR is a lot more than
it's
SBA.
quicker.
It's quicker. We get teachers get feedback. All those kind of things.
And we want to make sure if they're both, aligned to standards, the STAR should be helping us go, okay, what do kids need to do? Because ultimately what we're trying to do is ensure that all kids are meeting or exceeding state learning standards.
I understand. Thank you. I apologize for the question.
No, it's fine. It's good. Okay. So here's elementary school. Where we're seeing a lot of growth right now is the middle school, which is nice to see. So you can see when I looked at Smarter Balance yesterday, most of the Smarter Balance for middle school is now in, and I want to give kudos to Tina Brewer and our team. They're looking at these, they're communicating with teachers, with principals, letting them know where they're at, how they're doing as those scores are coming in. The Smarter Balance for high school occurred in earlier, so these are pretty close to final. I did notice that in math, the state one went down 1% yesterday, and we have a few more scores coming in for the district. But these are going to be pretty close, except for cleanup. There could be also, if we have a student who didn't take the test, for example, That will count against this average overall. So that it may go down when we get the official scores in August. But this data set's pretty much in. And then, like I said, for the STAR for 9th and 10th grade, we're still looking at it. We had a better percentage for reading, but math, when we've talked about how we're putting kids into accelerated math classes, we don't have a lot of students who have taken this. I'll follow up with some more information for the board on these numbers because they're not matching up. I wanted to just share some exciting work going on at a few of our schools that are seeing some really good results, like seeing 70% SGP, for example, or double-digit growth in Smarter Balance. Edison, Canyon View, and Washington are some elementaries that we're going to see some really great growth at those schools. And I checked with all of them individually and wanted to just talk with them. And you can see a lot of the same things came back. They're very excited. They were eager pilots for CKLA. They've been continuing to use those materials. So we're very excited about that for next year for all of our elementary students. They've had a huge focus on professional learning communities, especially focusing on standards, making sure they know what kids need to know. If they need help with something, if they need to intervene, if they need to push, they're ready to do that. And then they've also been building in some dedicated math fluency time and spiraling. So that way, when they get into math concepts, they're not getting stuck on some of the fluency. That's coming to them very quickly so they can get into the mathematical thinking and reasoning. They also are doing student goal setting, which we know is a very high impact practice. The students are setting goals. They're looking at STAR data, interim data, and then the really most important one is those classroom assessments because they can turn in a day and intervene and help kids. They're also taking advantage of some different reading strategies to make sure foundational reading strategies are happening. Edison also contributes some of their success to some grade level routines they have for organizing and note taking. At the middle school, Desert Hills is seeing some great growth as well. And they have really had a lot of professional learning this year on professional learning communities with their teachers, looking at the standards and making sure that everything's aligning to those standards. Last meeting, we mentioned that we had a new data visualization tool that we want to bring in called Linkit. And I just wanted to take a second to kind of show what that is and how we hope to be using that with our buildings next year. So Linkit is a data warehouse. So right now, I have to look at STAR here, Smarter Balance here, grades, attendance here, behavior here. What Linkit does is it stores it all together so we can make correlations. We can layer, say, if a student has this many absences, they're getting A's, B's, C's, D's. And we're just putting it all into a data warehouse. Right now, we have a little sandbox that we're playing with. And here are some views. It's tiny, but this is last year's 5th grade Smarter Balance. So it's in Linkit right now. I can quickly filter by student programs to see how they're doing on Smarter Balance, and this will just change like that for me. I could also layer pieces on it. So right now in Linkit, we've got Smarter Balance, we have STAR, and this next view shows them. Each one of these is a student. I took the names off, but we can see a student who has a 4 on Smarter Balance is also above on STAR. So we can see some correlations or just look at multiple things in one spot together very quickly. So we're going to do some initial training with principals in June, and then follow up in the fall. And we're just really excited that we can have data layered in a quick way for our staff. Yes.
With that, I'd asked this question a while back, and when we had talked about this, will we be able to track longitudinally? So like, if I wanted to say Mrs. Jones is a 3rd grade teacher, can I look at how Mrs. Jones students do in 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade?
Yes.
So we'll be able to do that.
I think so. They're building
Eric
some
to
custom, yeah, they're building custom
Eric's
ones
saying
for us. Yeah,
Okay, but you could do that, so you could
Yeah.
actually track how students that
Yeah.
took us. Perfect.
what's super hard, like we're doing some longitudinal work with dual language right now. So we have sophomores, and so we are at 1,100. And to back down, who started with us in kindergarten, it's like under 100.
Oh, wow.
So when we do longitudinal over time, there's just so much mobility.
There's a lot of attrition.
That number gets so small.
Okay. It may
But
not be
it's
as
still good
valuable.
it's still good to look at.
Yeah.
Mhm. I will follow up. I need to give you a few more details. So I'll get some stuff. If you have any questions or you want to see anything, let me know.
Thanks, Alyssa.
All right, thank you.
We have no unfinished business, so we'll move into new business. Policy number 3110, students' qualifications of attendance and placement. Matt Scott will be sharing with us. However, before Matt starts, I would like to check with the board. Would you guys be okay moving the high school financial literacy requirement to June 18th? So Brittany can be here because she's been heavily involved in that.
Yeah.
And we still have exec session.
That's absolutely fine.
So I will take a motion to move that from tonight's agenda to June 18th.
I will make a motion to move the agenda item, financial literacy, high school graduation and financial literacy to the June 18th meeting.
Thank you. Patty, can we do the roll call vote, please?
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Mr. Galbraith?
Yes.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Matt, you're up.
So in an effort to get the meeting over with quickly, Brittany also had really a lot of interest in this policy too.
She can,
All right. All right.
she can reach out. to
Do you think this
All
could
right.
leave your, you're probably tired, you can just make jokes now?
I don't know. It just did.
I love
You got her. You got her, Mark.
It's been a long day.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm bringing policy 3110 to you tonight for some quick revision, but I needed to give you a little background as to why we're revising this policy, because this policy was really needed to be revised based on some work we were doing around partial credits. So partial credits is awarding credits to students. There's some RCW language around allowing students who are engaged in foster care and who are maybe experiencing homelessness, giving them the opportunity to earn partial credit for work completed prior to, the transitions that they encounter in their lives. And it got us thinking a little bit about just what our policy is in regards to how we enroll students in the middle of the term and those kind of things. So a lot of that work around partial credit has really been done on the procedural side of policy 3110. But it did require a little bit of revision on this policy. So it requires board action. When we looked at partial credit, it really was about how we qualify students for attendance and how we place them in schools. So as we looked, we just wanted to clean up some of the language in this policy. So the first changes you'll see are on the second, or after the second paragraph. There were some items listed out there that would be providing the superintendent opportunity to exercise some exceptions to enrollment. And as we looked, D was really talking about there were some other reasons why we could accept for compulsory attendance. We just thought it'd be good just to list out those reasons rather than just talking about other reasons. So we listed the two, and they're listed there under E and F, and they'll be reformatted. But that would be the minor change there. The other change we had was that this policy, as it was written, was really about enrollment at elementary school. So kindergarten and first grade, it really didn't talk about high school students at all, our secondary students. So we did add the section there on page 2 of 3 at the top about students enrolling in high school, enrolling at any time during the term. But we wanted to make sure, and it aligned with current practice, we talked with all of our high schools about this, but we wanted to make sure that because a student comes in after midway through the semester, that we were not making determinations about where a student stood credit-wise and saying, oh, you're too late to join us. Colleges do that because you have to earn credit and those kind of things, but we're required to have students in school. So we wanted to make sure that this was in policy, and again, it aligns with what our current practice is, but it just wasn't mentioned before. We also, as we talked about placement of students, again, it wasn't really specifying that this was for grades K through 12, so we just added that line in. And then we wanted to make sure that we were clear. There are times when the district might place a student outside their boundary area. For program needs, for example, maybe the student requires a special education program that isn't offered within their home boundary school. And so this policy just reserves our right that there are some reasons why we would not have the students attend their home boundary school, and we place them in a school that was not their boundary school. And just clarified that program needs drive that in reason number 6. Last thing we did was just update our legal references in the policy. And then we've done some work around procedure 3110.1 to basically put into procedure what is current practice, but that allows students to enter into school, particularly at the secondary level, at high school level, and attain credit for whatever they're able to complete, either through mastery or through the providing them partial credit. So that concludes the changes on policy 3110.
Any questions? Were there any significant ones that Brittany had that you're?
No, I was joking.
Oh, okay, sorry. Got you.
Is it Deb?
I'm sure she was very interested in it, but she didn't ask me.
It's after 8. It's after 8 o'clock. Okay, perfect. All right. Haha, joke's on me. I'll take a motion too.
I'll do it. I move that we accept policy 3110, qualifications of attendance and placement for first and second reading.
Thank you. We have a motion. Pat, a roll call vote, please.
Annie Maltos? Yes. Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Mr. Galbraith?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes 4-0. All right. Moving along. Our next meeting agenda, we'll have our semi-annual board retreat and annual planning. And at this time, we will move into executive session for a legal issue for the next 30 minutes, after which we will close out the meeting. There will be no action taken after that. So 8:40.